Hello, this is Sabina at Cross Keys Crafts with the visible image artist trading card swap for March 2025, and the topic this month is the great outdoors. When I thought about the theme, I was actually a bit overwhelmed because I've got loads of lovely outdoorsy stamps. I've got animals, I've got plants, and I wasn't quite sure to start with what I would like to create, because I do like to make something new for this channel. I want to challenge myself not to repeat certain techniques. So when I couldn't decide which stamps I wanted to use, I actually decided to squeeze as many animals as I can onto my ATC. So my idea was to have the squirrel, the hedgehog and the little robin all pop their noses onto the ATC. I have outlined it roughly here, but it's a little bit bigger, so it will be smaller once it's finished. So I have already gone ahead and I have stamped these in black ink, just my normal VersaFine black onyx, and I then have heat embossed them in clear. I always find that gives me a better result than actually heat embossing them with black embossing powder. I have them very roughly coloured them in with a selection of my alcohol markers. I've got some of these tri-blend markers there, are actually quite great because you've got a light, a medium and a dark colour of the same colour, so dark, medium and dark variation or shade I should say, and that makes it easy to think about this. But I didn't overthink it anyway. I didn't do any shading because the shading comes with a stamp. Just make sure you colour the robin in properly. The first one had a orange belly there and was grey there, and I think that's the wrong way around. Actually, just as a side note, the embossing powder does resist the alcohol marker a little bit. So after I'd coloured them in, I took some scrap copy paper and padded the top off, and also where you've got very fine lines, and these are very close, for example on the hedgehog, it's quite tricky to get in with a nib of the alcohol marker, so maybe it's not even the best medium, but I fancied that. I had a little colouring session yesterday with different stamps, so I was in the mood for that, and I like to use different media at different times. So as you can see, I didn't colour or emboss the back really because I just need the noses to pop in. But for the background, I'm going to have another little experiment. I've been enjoying them recently, and if you watch some of my recent videos, I have been experimenting with petroleum jelly, which is like Vaseline, or you might have a different brand in the country you live in. And I have used this in 2 videos to mask my coloured stamps, but I don't want to do that here now. I thought I'd use that to just put over my stamps to create a resist for when I put colour on afterwards. It is a trial run, but because I'm creating a background, I don't even care how, what's the word I'm looking for, how perfect it is or how solid it is. So it's really just a trial run. So I think what I need to do is to get it flat on my finger, because I don't want this to go into the grooves, and I'm just going lightly over this stamp. This, by the way, is the leaves from the hedgehog dies. I'm going to link to all stamps below. So I'll just wipe that off. Just ignore my leggings. So, and I just want to put this down. And I can see something there. It's a bit like using embossing ink. You can't see it 100%. And I really just want to have texture, so I'm not even bothering where I'm putting it. I'm putting the leaves sideways. And I've also got little stamps here. They are from the squirrel set. So these are some acorns and some oak leaves. So I really just try to cover them lightly without brushing it off again. And it might not work. Oops, I did move it a little bit there, so hope that didn't mess it up. But as I said, it's just for texture, and if you get a hint of the image in the background, that would be great, although much of it will be covered anyway. Oh, I forgot to spread it out on my finger. Although I assume even if you do get it into the grooves, I don't know if that would actually show. So I'm getting very greasy fingers now. So I'm just cleaning myself up, and then I'll show you how I put the ink down. Because I know that the gel plate works well on the Vaseline, I'll be using that again. I could try and put colour directly onto this, but I think I'll have another go at this. And I got my Dinkers out again. So I've got the Lime Divine and the Pine Green. I want to keep the background green. But I also, because I usually neglect them, have got the Brush House, which is the Emerald Green and the Leaf Green. These work the same way, but the Dinkers are a bit more vibrant in colour. So I'm just going to use them all, mix and match. So I know this has got quite a bit of yellow in it, which I think will look great. And I'm just sprinkling them. I don't even know to do it all over because obviously I don't have a huge area there. I will do the same process again for the main card, but I haven't quite decided yet what I want to put on the front of the main card, whether I do the same. I will do that just off camera, and then you'll see it in the thumbnail or at the end of the video. So. And I really like using Dinkers and Brush House because you never know what you get. It's a great medium to play with, and you don't need all the colours. You can just go for 3 basic colours, a red, yellow and a blue, and then, you know, create other colours from those. So I always keep my hand a little bit on this, because when I spray, the mist will carry some of the powder to the back there, and I don't want to mess up my table. Actually, you can't see that. I've got an avalanche of craft supplies on the back here. Just had to shove that out of the way before I started crafting. So depending on how much water I add and how fine the mist is, I get these sort of bubbles. Let me just zoom in a little bit, or let me lift that up, because it is quite difficult to see. Oops. So, but I like that. I could sort of, you know, have more water, move them about a little bit, but the moving will also happen on the card. So because this is so heavy, in one of my videos I just turned this over onto the card. I think this time I just used this one here. I've cut it down obviously because I didn't want to use the other piece that goes on the background, and I'm just using the scrap paper here to press this down so I don't get my fingers too mucky. As I said, my hope is that the Vaseline resists the ink and that we get a nice pattern on there. So we'll get my fingers inky anyway. Oh yeah, there you go. Isn't that a fabulous mix of colours? So I'm just leaving that to dry now. I might sort of dab off a little bit where I've got some residue of the Dinkers sitting on the Vaseline. Bear with me. Just finding my toilet paper here. So, because I can take that off a little bit, because that will puddle on top of the Vaseline. Yeah. Don't have that much coverage here. Oh, and I can take the puddle off the top here. So I don't have that much coverage there, but as I said, some of it will be covered anyway. And if you want to choose a more open stamp, or a stamp that shows more what it actually is, because obviously unless you know it's a pile of leaves, it's quite difficult to sort of recognize, then you can do that. But I really wanted some background texture, and I enjoy working with it. So I will just use my scrap paper to actually puddle to pick this up, because I think that can be useful for another project, because you've still got quite a bit, or I've still quite a bit of colour on here, so waste not, want that, and it's a good way of cleaning up my gel plate as well. I might even, thinking about it, I might even use that for the main card rather than doing the same technique again. I will, by the way, wash my stamps in soapy water, make sure all the Vaseline has gone, because the last thing I want is for the Vaseline to resist the ink next time I'm stamping. It's actually only 5 minutes later. I just decided I want a bit more texture on this. So although this is still damp, I think I can come in with a bit more ink. And I would like to do some stenciling on this. But because I've only got a few sort of, they're more sort of regular stencil, rectangular stencil, like the bricks. I've got numbers, nothing that sort of nature related. I found this hard ink stencil, and I think these little openings would be lovely for a bit of texture. So I've just got my ink blending brush. I just picked the Distress Oxide Mode Lawn. I normally work with the Lavinia Elements, so I thought I'd get one more neglected ink pad out. So I'm just doing a bit of ink blending, and this will be sort of tone on tone. It won't show that much, but because it's oxide, it does just give a little bit of texture. And I don't want to go on the edge there. I really want these small openings. And I should really center them so a little bit, because I will have much of it covered by the animals. But I love this sort of, it's got a sort of shimmer, and because it's a different kind of green, I think this is really lovely. And it looks like just a little step, but it does make a difference. So I'm coming in again here. Try not to overthink it. Yeah, I think I will add a few more off camera. You've seen me do this now, and then I'm leaving it to dry. So it's been about an hour and a half. In the meantime, I have stamped this Sentiment Nature Heals the Soul. That's from the, I think from the mushroom set. Yes, it is. So I stamped that in different VersaFine Clair greens all over, and I really like the look of that. But I find both the card base and the ATC need something else. So I decided to come in with some heat embossing. And I've got some copper embossing powder. So because this should have dried now, I'm just giving it a try. I'm just applying my anti-static powder. But because I just want texture, if there is some sort of residue, it doesn't really matter. And on the ATC, I want to stamp my little oak leaf sort of in the areas where I don't have the VersaFine Clair, just as a spot of colour. And I just realised I haven't got my Versamark ready. So obviously I need the Versamark to do the ink embossing. You can use a VersaFine Clair if you want a colour underneath. Because this is quite a solid colour, it shouldn't show either. But so I'm just going in here in these areas, trying to remember where I've applied the ink. So maybe just this sort of 3 areas, because most of it, as I said, will be covered by the animals anyway. So I'm just applying this where I've stamped, or remember that I've stamped. Give that a bit of a tap. So I've got some residue here on the petroleum jelly, although I did go in and try to brush that off with my paper towel a little bit, but I will just brush that away. But the oak leaves have stamped lovely. So I'm just, if you find I'm rushing a little bit, it's because I've got some potatoes on parboil on the hob, so I want to make this quickly. So I will heat set this off camera. I just use my high setting. I will heat up my heat tool a little bit for about 30 seconds, and then I will heat it from underneath so I'm not blowing the powder away. With this one, I thought I'm coming in with my water bottle. I just want some extra texture, so all I'm doing, although I'm mindful that I will shift some of this ink again, I will just do a mist. You can also use your brush and do some spritzing. Might have been a little bit better actually than mist, but I'm going in for this now. So maybe don't put the powder everywhere, although obviously when I'm taking it off now, different places. So you can see I've got lots of sort of splats there. This one here is a bit more undefined, so I'm just brushing that away a little bit, but I want some bigger blobs, so I'm just taking my cap here off. I'm hoping that that's it. If not, let me just getting this ready here. So I'm putting a little bit of water here on my acrylic block, ideally without spilling it. There we go. And then I can pick that up with my brush and have some bigger splats. Yeah, that's better. So just dabbing that up before it ends on my projects, and now I can come in again with my embossing powder, and I should have some bigger blobs on here, which I do. Can you see that? That's fabulous. Still got this thing going on up here. Don't want that, but some of it will sort of disappear as well, because the copper is actually not as dark as the brown that it shows here now. So again, as with the other one, I will set that off camera once I've cooked my potatoes properly. So it's admittedly a few hours later. I've just come back to my craft desk. I just wanted to show you, if you've got warped cardstock, if it's not too heavy in weight, you can actually bend it a little bit. I'm not too worried because I'm going to stick another panel behind this, and that was my main one. So again, I think if I stick this down properly all over with glue on the back, I think I should be okay for that. I can send it through my die cutting machine between two layers, or at least a layer on top, with my of copy paper, so I don't get any blemishes from my die cutting plate. By the way, I noticed that when I embossed it that the some of the sentiments weren't dry yet, but I really like the look of that. It's just supposed to be a background. I have, for this accompanying card, I have stamped and die cut a mushroom. I've only stamped it in my green oasis, and then I've just come in with a mowed lawn again. I think I might find a different shade just for the outline to make it pop a little bit more, but I don't want to put too much on the front here really. But for the main elements, if I put these on the ATC like this, cutting it out, obviously the ATC, I find the white a little bit too stark. So I'm just using the remainder of ink on my ink blending brush, and I'm just going over the edges of this, of all the animals, doing the bird completely because he might end up almost fully on the ATC. With a hedgehog and the scribble, I might only have the front areas. Well, obviously I will have, because I've cut them down. So if you have a look at this now, it's not as harsh. So have a play a little bit. As I said, I'm not inking this up anymore. I could go in with a heavier application, or I could even use a slimmer stencil brush to do that and have a bit more control if I want to avoid the coloured areas. So I will assemble everything off camera now, just to keep this video short, and then I come back and show you the finished cards. Here are my finished ATC and card. As you can see, the hedgehog didn't make the cut. I realised it would be too much of a squeeze, and I didn't want to cover too much of this background. Obviously, with the heat embossing, I didn't plan too far ahead. I was turning it upside down as well, so it's mostly covered up here, and I've got no heat embossing here, but I'm fine with that. That's just the background, and I just wanted a hint of colour there. So yeah, I'm really pleased with this. I think this is cute, and I had a look whether I wanted the hedgehog on the front card. Obviously, I hadn't fully stamped and embossed him, but he looked a little bit lost there. I didn't really like that. And with the mushroom, I decided to go in with some heat embossing on here. I just used my Wow embossing pen to draw on it, but to be honest, I don't particularly like this either. I think that works as it is. I don't want to do anything else to that, so these will both be recycled right now. So yeah, but I'm really pleased with these. I hope I could show you something that I haven't done before, although I have used obviously the squirrel and the robin stamps before. But yeah, I really enjoyed making these, and I think this is a fantastic effect with the water spritz. Yeah, and if you like these cards too, you might want to give me a thumbs up. And if you'd like to see more of what I'm creating, you might want to subscribe to my channel. I'd be very happy about that. And I'll see you soon with another video.